Hi there. Welcome to Navigating Freedom in Federal Retirement. This is the show where we dive into the stories of all things about federal employees and military retirement planning. I'm Jeff Gill, your host, and today we've got an amazing guest with us. Joining us is Michael True, a former Army Command Sergeant Major who has made a smooth switch from a standout career in the military to an important role at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Right now, Michael is working as a certified management and program analyst, where he uses his skills to help veterans and their families find their way after service. Michael's currently putting his efforts into a strategic enterprise rendition program, showing his commitment to making a big difference for veterans. He's also the finance director and a board member for the Military Police Regiment Association, taking a key role to support his fellow service members. Michael, thank you for joining us today.
Appreciate you allowing me to join your podcast. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. Michael, with your previous experience, could you give us an overview of the services that your department with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs that they provide to help veterans re-enter the civil life, and particularly focusing on workplace integration?
So specifically to my work setting, we don't really provide those kinds of services. We're a different branch of the Department of Veterans Affairs in that we are a compliance, risk and remediation branch. And the things that we do is provide services to enhance the veteran support services in such a way that we oversee different audits, assessments, and reviews, both internally and externally, to make sure that Department of Veterans Affairs is providing the kinds of support that veterans deserve. So, as far as finding or helping veterans with the services to either transition from their different branch, or providing services for veterans who have already transitioned out. There are a variety of different places that a veteran can go to get that type of information. And the bottom line is the Department of Veterans Affairs provides a variety of different services that veterans can tap into if they just go to the Department of Veterans Affairs homepage and then kind of go through the different links that are provided. They can certainly find the services that could be tailored for their specific needs.
Okay, all right, thank you. With maybe you can enlighten us on this. I mean, you being a former military as well, what are the real challenges that our military men and women face when they transition back to civilian life, and so how can what kind of advice can you give us on that?
Well, when I transitioned out, it was over 20 years ago, and the different branches of service were just starting to stand up these transition assistance programs around different installations. And one of the problems that I found, especially for senior folks within the military, or those that may have been in for mid-career and then were getting out. Um, the transition assistance office programs were not geared to helping them in some cases. That it's not an indictment on the process or the services provided, but the things that senior folks and mid-career transitioning military personnel, their needs are somewhat different than a person who may have only been in for one enlistment and then decided to get out. Um, One of the problems that those careerists and the midterm folks had is finding ways to articulate the military skill sets they developed into the kinds of things that private sector wants, needs, and desires for their workforce in such a way that they eliminate military jargon. So when you put your resume together, a person who has a military background may understand everything that you've written 100%, but the person on the other side of the desk for a private sector company may not see it that way. So articulating the kinds of things, demilitarizing your
Right.
resume, and demilitarizing your speech when you go into an interview, and understanding the that those folks on the other side of those desks doing those interviews, they may support the military 100%, but they want to hear from you in such a way that you're able to articulate the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they require with their language, not our military language.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Does the Department of Veterans Affairs, do they have programs that assist our veterans in like the job search? I mean, because I know many of them have a hard time finding a gainful employment after returning to civil workforce.
They do. Um, and I tell you what, I've been putting together a list of links that a person who is transitioning, because I'm getting ready to assist another friend of mine with a mentoring program uh, under our Military Police Regimental Association umbrella. And I can provide you a page of different links that are out there from the federal VA, different federal agencies that assist veterans specifically to a veteran's needs, different links to state provided websites that also cater to veteran needs, along with some private sector and some nonprofit organizations that provide assistance to veterans and their families uh, across the wide a range of needs that veterans and their families have, whether it's assisting them with resume builds, helping them to determine the best way to pursue job hunting and that kind of thing, along with checklists that veterans can have to begin that process of transition, regardless of how long they've been in. I can get you a copy of that page for
That
you
would be that would be
to
wonderful.
use.
We could attach that resource to this podcast and blog post, and that way people could have it as a resource. And that kind of leads into my next question: does the Veterans Department of Affairs, do they have anything to help veterans like translate their military skills into valuable civilian skills?
There are there are job aids that are provided. There are a variety of different ways that veterans can, based on their, some veterans have disability need, and because of their disability, um, it may limit them to the types of jobs that are out there, and they may need job skill training and that sort of thing. Depending on the level of their disability rating, there are opportunities for them to tap into those resources the VA provides as well.
Okay, very good. And so even with mental health and well-being support, does the department offer veterans that any kind of assistance there with their transition?
Um, well, understanding that an individual's needs vary from one thing to another,
Mhm.
um, but as far as a veteran and receiving the type of care um, that one might need, depending on um, what what their health needs, what their mental health needs might be. Um, all those things, especially those that are service related, are things that they can tap into Department of Veterans Affairs to receive the appropriate level of care to help them meet their needs as they transition.
Okay, all right. So even with I mean, like mental health and maybe disabilities or things. But is there a list of services that are available for benefits? I mean, like a list that lists all the benefits that veterans have available to them, because I know many of them don't understand the benefits that are available to them.
Again, the link that we live in an age now where information is at our fingertips. So the
Yeah.
Department of Veterans Affairs, under their banner and their links, uh, and a person can tap into uh, specific needs when they go to those links within the Department of Veterans Affairs. I would also encourage someone who has questions. There are VA offices scattered all around the continental United States as well as our territories, where a person can they don't necessarily need an appointment. They can walk in and sit down and discuss uh, some of the things that they may have as concerns with a counselor there. And that counselor is trained to help them plug into the right resources to make sure they get what they need.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Very, very good. I mean, you just mentioned earlier you're helping mentor some young men that are maybe transitioning. Um, what training opportunities have you found or seen that are available to veterans? I mean, many of the skills that they learn in the military are not, transferable to a civilian life. So other than going to education, is there anything that's immediately available to them that maybe the public doesn't know about?
One of the things that in recent years that has provided some assistance and maybe even better described as a gateway for those who are transitioning is a program that's called Skill Bridge. And what that does is allow a transitioning veteran to uh, to get into a program uh, within the last year. Once they have an approved retirement date or an approved DTS, um, they can get into this Skill Bridge program, and it provides them an opportunity to do just as you described, figure out a way to take those things that they may uh, have as knowledge, skills, and abilities that they gained while in uniform, and then leverage those knowledge, skills, and abilities to um, something that would be marketable either in private sector or in another government agency. That skill bridge would give them the skills that they would need to leverage those things that they've done in their career to transition out in a more productive and streamlined way, without all the angst that they got to do all of this on their own.
Right, right. Many of us forget about the families of our veterans, and they have probably just a harder time with the transition um, as the veterans do. Having dad home every day, or mom, whoever it may be, or maybe if there's a disability or something of that. It have what where can a family members find counseling or help with the transition?
Those services, as they go through the transition process,
Mhm.
um, there's a variety of different services that military installations provide, not just to the service member, but to their spouse and their family. Um, Once the transition does occur, especially those who are retiring, they still have access to medical treatment facilities uh, that that provides either through their primary care or through a referral provides the kind of access that people need to help them work through any of the mental uh, problems that a person might, that's a bad way to say it, any of the stress that a
Mhm.
person might have, that they would experience during that transition, because it does become somewhat of a safety net for those in uniform and their families, because they become part of a community that's in some cases very isolated from private communities. If they live on an installation throughout their career, um, they may not have the understanding of how things work in a city or a state that they may not have lived in prior to. They may make a decision when they transition out to go move to a location because there's a job opportunity, and it may be a place that they've never lived. I think the most important thing that family members, especially, uh, you talk about it, both you and your veteran spouse, to talk about the transition and make sure that um, you manage expectations as you go through that process, to make sure that everybody, uh, part of the family, it understands what is getting ready to happen before it actually happens. One of the things that I've found in helping those that transition is that they don't plan for that retirement or that separation of service in the same way, with the same level of detail that they might when they do a PCS move, permanent change of station move,
Mhm.
where they treat that retirement as not as with the same level of importance in some cases that they do when they go through that transition from one duty station to the next. I think that's I think that's one of their biggest mistakes, and those that suffer the most with the stress of that change, if they fail to make a plan in such a way that they pay attention to all the things that they need to be made aware of, that they find mentors, friends that they trust to help them with um, to help them with that transition, who have already done it. It's important to make sure that you understand that you're not in this alone. There are plenty of people out there who are willing to help provide the services, help provide counsel, and help you with that transition, both family members and the active duty members of the family. And one of the other pieces to this is there are many support agencies or many different groups that help support spouses specifically when it comes to
Okay.
those transitions. There's a variety of different agencies that are out there that, that help a spouse understand how things work. And some of those agencies have helped to encourage lawmakers to uh, implement laws that have assisted spouses in those transitions as well, whether it's maintaining certifications and licenses that they don't have to go back through testing and training to achieve those certifications and licenses when they move from one state to another. They're able to do that much more smoothly than they were able to, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago.
Very good. No, that's some great information. Appreciate that. The another thing that I've seen is many times veterans, when they return to the civil, they really have a hard time finding employment that they find suitable or enjoyable. So what do you find, even with your charitable work that you do, what do you find are the biggest barriers that a veteran may face in finding fulfilling employment?
I'll go back to what I was just talking about, is making a plan, um, understanding that the transition is probably one of the biggest career decisions or career moves you'll make in your life.
Hmm.
So it's important to plan those actions accordingly. And you know, a lot of folks, a lot of folks have in their mind what they are able to do when they walk out the door. In some cases, you find that I've found in speaking with some folks based on what their rank was. They think that they can walk immediately into a position where they have pretty much the same level of authority and sphere of influence they had while they were still wearing a uniform. That's not always the case. So it's important to manage expectations in that regard, because uh, while you may have been a senior leader or someone who managed and maintained a great level of influence in your position in the military, some employers expect you to come in, um, maybe not at the bottom level, but at a level where you can learn their culture, learn their values. And some folks have a harder time adjusting to that part of the growth process once you depart the military. They're not in that mindset that they think they have, or they are in a mindset where they feel like if they do this, they've been knocked down a few rungs. Um, that corporate mentality, where they're trying to train you and help you understand their culture, their values. Um, it's important to understand that there's a growth process there, just as there was in the military. We all didn't come into a uniform setting where we were placed in a high level of oversight and leadership and all that kind of thing. You had to learn the culture, the values, and all the things that made you what you were while you were in uniform. It's important that private sector has a similar mindset when it comes to bringing people in. That's not to say that a person doesn't transition into a position of authority or leadership, but it may be a growth process that some folks aren't accustomed to.
Right, right. It's completely different environments, right? So
Yes.
a whole different skill set, whole different skill set. So
Well, in private sector too, depending on the organization, the guy in charge has a board of directors or a whole bunch of people they have to answer to for the bottom line, and it's important for the person transitioning. We didn't have to do that in the military.
right,
We had to report to people and we were responsible and accountable for a great many things. But when it's all said and done, the bottom line is what drives private sector. And understanding that and managing expectations from that perspective will give a person a better understanding why, if they have to go through a process to learn the culture and values of that organization.
that's great information. Yeah, is there anything in the pipeline, maybe in the Department of Veterans Affairs is that's coming down, some type of advocacy policy that may help or may be working toward assisting veterans with this transition process for the future?
There are there are different needs that individual veterans may have. Um, and I would just suggest that if a veteran is unclear or unsure, to either consult somebody they trust, find their local VA office, um, or look at the VA website and see if there's something that uh, might be able to provide the answers to the questions they have. The VA is a constant um, influx of people, but it's also an organization that's willing to make change whenever they need to help support veterans. And the needs of veterans from the World War II area, through Korea, through Vietnam, through Gulf War, to our current needs, um, they've changed over time. So the needs have to be met with different services and different types of um, support things that veterans need. So trying to keep track of them, even as an employee
Yeah.
of the VA, it's just overwhelming. What really surprises me is the number of services available to veterans and the change that occurs to help meet the needs based on the demographics. Um, those transitions to those agents, those support functions, pretty seamless. when you think about it, that the Department of Veterans Affairs is one of the largest federal employers on the books, and for the types of things that they do, not just the health related matters, but all the other services, whether it's benefits, whether it's the cemetery folks, um, and then the things that we do to help maintain the services through IT solutions. It's pretty amazing how it all comes together in such a way to provide veterans with the type of experience that they need to get what they really truly need.
Yes, and I mean, like you stated, it is a huge department. I mean, the Veterans Affairs, I mean, they have from van drivers to taking people to doctor's appointments all the way to educational services, just about anything someone needs. But like you stated, you did just state that there's a lot of programs out there. There's so many out there. It's hard to make sure you're in the right one. So yeah, I'm sure it can be confusing at times for some people.
Right.
With your experience, I mean, vast experience of military transitioning, your mentorship, um, what personal advice could you give either a gentleman coming, deciding to leave the military and enter the workforce, or a seasoned veteran that's looking to retire? What advice would you give him to make sure that he covers all of his bases? I know you mentioned already, having a plan, sitting down and talking to your veteran spouse, things of that nature. But is there anything else that you can think of that would really benefit them?
When I first started doing these kinds of things, I used to think that there was a blanket plan that I could, or a cookie cutter uh,
Mm,
advice that I could give to different transitioning members. And what I've learned is I like to just sit down with those who I have an opportunity to mentor, because what I've learned over time is that each one of those has a different need. Uh, what Regardless of how well they planned for this transition, regardless of how well they've communicated things with their family and spouse, each one of them has a specific need that I try to listen very, very hard, listen to what it is that they're concerned about, and then offer my advice to those folks, because as I said, each one of them has a different need. That it may be something that I haven't had to deal with for several years, because their need is so specific that it's not one that could be categorized as a common type of thing that transitioning folks have. Um, some look for ways to leverage their benefits, whether it's their GI Bill benefits, um, for the different types of opportunities, whether it's seated classrooms, virtual classrooms, or job training in trade skills, because there are ways that they can use those GI Bill benefits for trade skills. It doesn't have to be a seated classroom in all cases. Um, and the needs that a retiring person has are usually much different than someone who is either a first term, midterm, or uh, mid-level careerist when they make that decision to move on, because each is different. And one of the other things that I've noticed, because I've had the experience and the opportunity to assist reserve component transitioning veterans, their needs are completely different. I would just say that in a blanket way. Their needs are usually completely different than those from uh, that were active component. And I'll just leave it at that, because the specificity of each of those groups of people is something that you just have to sit down with them and get a better understanding of what their expectation is, how they want to get there, and then what we need to do to help them formulate the plan to do so.
all right. Thank you. You've mentioned you have a hobby of love and helping others and doing things outside of the Department of Veterans Affairs. And where could, for someone who wants to help support veterans that are making that transition, where can they find ways, or is there a resource that they can find how they can help, how they can volunteer their time or things of that nature?
There are a variety of different veterans support organization VSOs that exist. Um, you find them more so maybe around military installations
Mhm.
because they have a greater audience, if you will, in numbers alone. Um, but normally, wherever there's a VA center, not just a health center, but wherever there's a VA office, they have information pamphlets on the variety of different VSOs that are out there. And then, the normal VSOs that everybody knows about: VFW, American Legion, um, Disabled Veterans Association. The, they all have different ways um, that they support the transitioning veteran, or just support veterans in general terms. Um, but each one of those, in their own right, is a good way to, or is a good starting point, and it would be um, the best thing that I could do to recommend, if check them all out, because um, one may give you a few nuggets, another may give you a few more. But one of the things that I learned growing up, before I even came in the military, I helped do a variety of odd jobs around when I was going to college, and you just put things in the toolbox. You may never use that tool but one or two times, but
Right.
it's important that you have a toolbox that's complete, because you never know when you might need it. That's the advice I would give to those folks, that there are so many different VSOs that are out there. Check them all out, and
Yeah.
one may be the right connection for you.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today. And if you can provide those links, we'll put them in the podcast here. And that way, if anyone needs those services, they'll have access to quickly find them. I appreciate your time today.
Hey, I appreciate it too. Thank you for the invitation, and I'll get those links to you as soon as we get off the chat.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. My pleasure. As we come to the end of today's episode, I want to extend a huge thank you to Michael True for sharing his invaluable insights with us. Michael's journey from an Army commander, sergeant major, to a pivotal role in the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is truly inspiring. His dedication to supporting veterans and their families in navigating the complexities and transition to civil life is commendable. Thank you for tuning in to Navigating Freedom in Federal Retirement. Keep striving for your goals, and remember, your journey to freedom is within reach. Till next time, take care, stay empowered, keep navigating toward your visions of freedom. Thank you.